The NBA draft is one of the most exciting times of the year for basketball fans. It's the ultimate representation of hope. If your team makes the correct pick, it can set itself up for years of success. If you blow it, well, there's always next year. Today, I'm going through the last 77 years of NBA drafts to rank every 8th pick in draft history. There are a few caveats before jumping in. One, this is only ranking a player's pro career. I do not care about how good they were in college, but I will consider if they played overseas or for a different domestic league. And two, we don't have much data on some of the more recent players, but I'm still going to rank them. Just don't be surprised if some of these shoot up in the rankings in the next few years. Finally, in the league's early years, there was a rule where teams could select territorial players, throwing off the draft number slightly. I'm going to go with what Basketball Reference has listed for each slot, so take it up with them if you have any issues. Let's get into it. 78, Johnny Horan, 1955. Horan played in 19 total games during his lone season in the NBA, averaging 1.8 points per game. The 6'8 forward was out of the game after the 56th season. 77, Hal Lear, 1956. Lear only averaged 1.3 points during his 3 games in the NBA. However, he then jumped into a long career in the Eastern Pennsylvania Basketball League, winning the league's MVP in 1957 and picking up 2 titles in 1960 and 64. Granted, the precursor to the CBA wasn't nearly as talented as the NBA, but Lear was a great player in the lower leagues. 76, Roger Strickland, 1963. Strickland played in 1 career game with the Baltimore Bullets, scoring 2 points. However, he's not at the bottom of this list because he spent quite a bit of time playing in AAU ball, competing for a title in 1969. 75, Sam Ranzino, 1951. Ranzino played 1 season in Rochester, averaging 2.2 points in 39 career games. Not great numbers, but enough to get him out of the bottom 3. 74, Paul Houston, 1947. Apologies if these early entries are a bit samey, but Houston averaged 3.6 points in 46 games during his single season with the Stags. That's just enough to move him ahead of Ranzino. 73, Bob Lockmuller, 1952. First of all, my apologies for any mispronunciations. I'm sure there's going to be a few of them, but it's just tough to find good sources for a lot of these guys. Anyways, if I included coaching stats, Lockmuller would likely move up the list thanks to his excellent coaching career at the high school level. As a player, he was pretty bad, with 3.7 points and 2.6 rebounds in 62 career games. 72, Ward Williams, 1948. Williams is another guy who played a single season, averaging 4.1 points on 24% shooting. With those numbers over 53 games, I honestly might be slightly overrating him. 71, Jack Turner, 1952. Turner also played a single season, averaging 4.3 points and 2.4 rebounds in 65 games for the Knicks. 70, Rob Dillingham, 2024. Give Dillingham a year or two in Minnesota, and he'll likely fly up this list. He's averaging 5.4 points a night in 2025, but has only suited up for 39 games, so I'm going to keep him here for now. 69, Cleo Hill, 1961. Hill was an early pioneer for the game, despite only playing a single season in the NBA. It's also likely he would have had a better career if he'd been given more of a chance or played for a franchise that wasn't quite as segregated. He averaged 5.5 points and 3.1 boards in 58 games before spending several seasons in other domestic leagues. 68, Bennie Swain, 1958. Swain won a title during his lone season in Boston. Sure, he only played 12 minutes while averaging 4.6 points and 4.5 rebounds, but he still played a part in that championship. After that, Swain moved on to a high school coaching career. 67, John Richter, 1959. You can copy just about everything I said about Swain and paste it here. Richter played for 1 season for Boston, averaging 4.3 points and 4.7 rebounds to help the Celtics win another title. He then spent the next few years in the EPBL, making that league's all-league team twice. 66, Rafael Araujo, 2004. With this entry, I'm officially picking longevity over production. The big Brazilian only averaged 3 points and 3 boards in the NBA, which is obviously worse, albeit slightly, than Richter and Swain. However, he also spent 3 years in the NBA, nearly tripling Richter's games played in the league. It's not much, but it's enough to get him the nod. 65, DeSanga Diop, 2001. Since we're talking about longevity, I might as well as get to Diop. My man played for 12 years in the NBA. That's impressive, but his numbers are so bad, you might have to wonder if he had some dirt on NBA executives or something. More seriously, the guy was 7 foot tall, which was often good enough to get a contract during the 2000s. And to be fair, he was a solid enough shot blocker in limited minutes. 64, Tom Riker, 1972. If you're 6'10", you really should be able to average more than 2 rebounds during your career. Like, if you're Tom Riker and you can't score in your limited minutes, you might as well become a great rebounder. Unfortunately, that never happened, and Riker was out of the NBA in 3 years. 63, Joe Alexander, 2008. Alexander had a decent start in Milwaukee, but fell off a cliff when he moved to Chicago in 2009. To his credit, he did have a solid career playing in Israel, winning 3 league cups, but that's not enough to move him higher. 62, Shawn Respert, 1995. Coming off of a star-studded career at Michigan, where he averaged over 20 points a game during his 4-year career, many expected Respert to be a walking bucket in the NBA. For the most part, that didn't happen, though he did average 8 points a night during his short stint with the Mavericks. Unfortunately, that 10-game stretch was the best of his career, and the 6'1" guard was only able to average 5 points over 4 seasons. 61, Frank Ntilikina, 2017. Frankie Smokes was showing improvement through his first 3 years in New York, but never took a step as a shooter and was eventually sent off to Dallas and then Charlotte before leaving the NBA after 7 mostly disappointing seasons. 60, Bo Kimble, 1990. The season before he joined the NBA, Kimble dropped 35 points a night for La Jolla Marymount. However, consistent injuries kept him from ever taking the leap in the NBA. He did average around 7 points a night as a rookie in limited minutes, but Kimble missed big chunks of time over the next 2 years and was out of the NBA in 1993. 59, Jarace Walker, 2023. Walker might not ever become an NBA star, but he's on an upward trajectory during his second season in Indiana. The man-child is only 21 years old, so he'll hopefully have a long career ahead of him and should move up the list. 58, Lancaster Gordon, 1984. It's apt to have Gordon and Walker so close together because Gordon also showed growth during his first 3 seasons before falling off in year 4 due to injuries. Again, here's hoping Walker has a long career ahead of him, but Gordon is kind of an example of the bad side of what could happen to young players. 57, Tom Workman, 1967. Workman averaged 2.5 points during his 3-year NBA career. Thankfully, he also spent 2 years in the ABA and dropped 11 points a night for the LA Stars, bringing his career numbers up. That said, he played in just 125 games over 5 years. With that low level of availability, I can't rank him any higher. 56, Nik Stauskas, 2014. Stauskas can absolutely chuck, there's no doubt about it. And he did give Philly 9.5 points a night in 2017. However, there's a reason he struggled to get minutes when playing for teams that aren't tanking. As a heater off the bench, he wasn't bad, but he can't go any higher. 55, Stanley Johnson, 2015. The Stanimal started his career well, averaging 8 points off the bench for the Pistons. In year 3, he became a starter, but was traded the next season and was never able to take that next step beyond role player. 54, Randy White, 1989. White had a solid enough 5-year run in Dallas. His scoring peaked at nearly 10 a night in 93, and he was generally good for 5 rebounds and a steal a game. However, he was out of the NBA after the season. White did win 2 titles in Israel and a 3rd in Russia, but that's not enough to move him higher. 53, George Wilson, 1964. Geoff was an average big man throughout his career, with the lone exception of his 68-69 season in Phoenix. In 41 games, he was traded midway through the season. The big guy dropped 11.6 points and 12.3 rebounds. Had he been able to keep up that production across his career, he'd be great. Instead, he's just outside of the top 50 8th overall picks in NBA history. 52, Jaxson Hayes, 2019. Hayes is only 24, so he could easily take another step, though that seems unlikely considering his numbers have fallen off since year 3, when he averaged 9.3 points and 4.5 rebounds. Still, the 7-footer could benefit from playing with Luka Doncic in LA if the All-NBA star decides to re-sign with the Lakers. 51, Brandan Wright, 2007. Wright is the perfect example of a role player. Sure, he never averaged more than 10 points a night, and his career rebounding average of 3.6 is a little low for a big man. However, when he was healthy, Wright was a solid paint protector, averaging 1 block for his career. Of course, he dealt with tons of injuries, which set back his development over and over again. Still, he played for 10 years, so you can't knock him too much. 50, Adonal Foyle, 1997. Foyle is very similar to Wright, at least in terms of longevity. He also doesn't have great rebounding numbers for a big man, but he did average more than 2 blocks a night in 3 seasons. Those are pretty great numbers for a bench player who only scored 4 points a night during his career. 49, Mark Macon, 1991. Macon sprinted out to a great rookie season, dropping 10.6 points, 3 boards, 2 assists, and 2 steals to make the all-rookie second team. Unfortunately, injuries derailed his career. He played in just 251 games across 6 seasons, continually missing big chunks of time and spending several years playing overseas between NBA stints. 48, Marquese Chriss, 2016. Chriss had a similarly strong start to his pro career, averaging 9 points to finish 7th overall in voting for Rookie of the Year. After that, he struggled with injuries and inconsistent playing time. Chriss is only 27, but he's been out of the NBA since 2022. 47, Jordan Hill, 2009. Hill had a few solid seasons playing for the Lakers in the mid-2010s during the twilight of Kobe Bryant's career. Outside of that, he was an average bench player and a great trade piece. 46, Dyson Daniels, 2022. The Great Barrier Thief has had a breakout 2025 season, averaging 14 points, 5.6 boards, 4 assists, and is currently leading the league with nearly 3 steals a night. If he keeps up this production, he'll fly up the list, but I'm taking a wait-and-see approach. 45, Obi Toppin, 2020. Toppin has become a great energy guy off the bench during his 5 seasons. In Indiana, he upped his scoring to double figures and has become a more efficient shooter. Plus, I have to give him some bonus points for winning the 2022 dunk contest. 44, Olden Polynice, 1987. Polynice might be the player I struggle to place the most. The guy played in over 1,000 games during his 15-year career and was a double-double machine during his days in Sacramento. However, he was also a bang average big in his 5 seasons with Seattle. At the end of the day, you can't teach a guy to be 6'11", and OP was a very good rebounder with great size. You could argue he should be higher, but I think he slots in pretty nicely here at 44. 43, Chris Wilcox, 2002. Outside of a few seasons in double figures with a very bad Supersonics team, Wilcox spent his career as an average big man backup. There's a reason why he only played 3 minutes of playoff basketball during his 11-year career. 42, Todd Day, 1992. Day scored in double figures for the Bucks, but his teams never won more than 35 games. His 2 years in Boston were more of the same, dropping 14.5 points for a 15-win squad. When he played for playoff teams, he was an average bench player. 41, Al-Farouq Aminu, 2010. I might be too high on Aminu because I think he's a great 4th option who can lock horns with the other team's best offensive player on defense. That doesn't get him into the top 40, but he's very close. 40, Gary Gregor, 1968. Gregor burst out of the gate with 11 points and 9 boards to make the all-rookie squad. While his numbers fell off slightly as he aged, the 6'7" forward was solid when healthy. Unfortunately, his career was cut short as Gregor only played for 6 seasons. 39, Jim Barnett, 1966. Barnett spent 11 years in the league, often playing as the 3rd or 4th option on teams featuring Hall of Famers like Rick Barry, Bill Russell, Walt Frazier, Pete Maravich, and Julius Erving. Barney was never as good as those guys, but he consistently averaged double figures to keep opposing teams honest. He's also the inspiration behind the Rip City nickname for the Portland Trailblazers, which is a fun fact, but doesn't change his placement on the list. 38, Darnell Hillman, 1971. Dr. Dunk spent his first 5 years in the ABA, winning titles in his first 2 seasons as the backup to Bob Nedolicki and George McInnes. In year 4, center Mel Daniels was traded, and Hillman took over his spot in the starting lineup. He averaged 13 points and 9 boards over the next few seasons. While his numbers trailed off when he joined the NBA in '77, Dr. Dunk did win the first NBA Slam Dunk contest. 37, Terrence Ross, 2015. From one former dunk contest champ to another, Ross takes this spot largely due to his stretch with the Magic. While those teams didn't make it far in the playoffs, they at least got there. And while Ross never took that step towards stardom, they don't call him the Human Torch for nothing. My man was another player on this list who could get hot in a hurry, even once dropping 51 points in a game during his early days with Toronto. 36, Freeman Williams, 1978. Free is one of the many guys on this list who scored big points for bad teams, making it hard to move them much higher. If you're putting up 19 points a night for a basement-dwelling team, does it really matter? I would argue not so much, though Free gets some bonus points for playing Duck Johnson in one of the great basketball movies, White Men Can't Jump. 35, Colin Sexton, 2018. Maybe I'm making a big mistake by putting a dude who once averaged 24 points a game this low, but Sexton has never played in the playoffs, despite playing for 6 seasons. At some point, we need to see him produce on a team that's actually good. Until that happens, I can't rank him much higher. 34, Herm Gilliam, 1969. Gilliam's best stretch came during his 4 years in Atlanta. He consistently gave the Hawks double-digit points and solid assist numbers during that stretch, helping the team to back-to-back playoff appearances, though they lost to the Celtics in the opening round both seasons. During his early career, the NBA didn't track steals, but Gilliam was well known for picking opposing guards' pockets. He also won a title at the tail end of his career with Portland in '77, splitting 2 guard minutes with Larry Steele. 33, Brian Grant, 1994. Grant is one of those classic 90s and aughts bigs that you definitely want on your team if you need a good 4th option. He never became a superstar, despite finishing 5th in voting for Rookie of the Year. Instead, he carved out a 12-year career as a serviceable starter for several franchises. 32, Channing Frye, 2005. Frye got off to a great start, making the all-rookie first team behind 12 points and 6 boards a night. However, he consistently struggled with injuries and was even forced to sit out a full season with an enlarged heart. Still, he made a solid career for himself as a stretch big man. The 7-footer shot nearly 39% from 3 during his 13-year career and would be such a fun player to watch if he was playing in the modern NBA. 31, Jim Washington, 1965. Washington averaged a double-double in points and rebounds during 4 of his 11 seasons in the NBA. It's even more impressive when you realize the 6'6" Washington was playing as an undersized center during a few of those seasons. That said, he was never able to take that next step as a player, spending his best seasons as a 3rd or 4th option for playoff teams. 30, Brandon Knight, 2011. At 24, Knight was averaging nearly 20 points and 5 assists for the Phoenix Suns. That was after putting up double-digit points on bad Pistons and Bucks teams. However, Knight then endured a few injuries, and Devin Booker took his job as the starting two-guard for Phoenix. After missing the entire 2018 season, he was never the same player, finishing his once promising career with disappointment. 29, TJ Ford, 2003. If not for recurring back issues, Ford would probably be higher on this list. The point guard averaged 14 points, 8 assists, and 1 steal at his peak, but he could never stay healthy. Still, I have to rank him relatively high because he was such a good traditional point guard when healthy. 28, LeRoy Ellis, 1962. With over 1,000 games across his 14-year career, Ellis is something of an NBA Ironman. Until his final season in the league, he never played in fewer than 72 games. His teams were consistently in the playoffs, with Ellis providing great rebounding and rim protection. Unfortunately, we only have 3 seasons of track defensive numbers, but at 33, he was averaging a steal and block per game for Philly. If we assume he was good or better during his early years, Ellis might have a case to move higher. 27, Antoine Carr, 1983. At his peak, Carr was dropping 20 points a night for the Clippers. That team finished with just 25 wins, so take that number with a grain of salt, but he also produced for playoff teams, notably scoring 20 a night for the Spurs in '92, trying in vain to keep the team from being swept by the Suns. Still, Carr was a very good sixth man during his 16-year career, even giving solid minutes to the Jazz in the '97 and '98 finals, despite being in his mid-30s. 26, Rex Chapman, 1988. Honestly, I might be a little high on Chapman. Here's the thing, he played in more than 70 games just once, but averaged nearly 15 points a night during his career. The guy could flat out shoot the basketball. Unfortunately, his progress was consistently sidelined by injuries, which led to his infamous struggles with addiction. Even with all the injuries, he was a double-digit scorer in 11 of his 12 seasons. Chapman probably should have been better, but that doesn't mean he wasn't a solid pro. 25, Mike Bantam, 1973. Bantam started his NBA career by making the All-Rookie First Team. In year 2, he received a smattering of votes for MVP. He then worked through a few down years before joining the Pacers in '77. He averaged nearly 14 points and 7 rebounds during his 5 years in Indiana, and then went to Italy to play for several seasons before retiring. 24, Clark Kellogg, 1982. Kellogg is almost impossible to place on this list. The guy averaged 20 points and 10 rebounds as a rookie, and kept his scoring above 18 and his rebounds above 9 when he was healthy. Unfortunately, that health only lasted 3 years before chronic knee injuries would knock him out of the game way too soon. Had he been able to keep playing at a high level, he'd be much higher on this list. He's a very underrated what-could-have-been player. 23, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, 2013. KCP is another guy on this list who makes a great 4th or 5th option on offense while giving you great perimeter defense. Importantly, he's done that on title-winning squads, winning with the Lakers in 2020 and the Nuggets in 2023. That said, his ceiling is obviously limited, so he's probably not going much higher. 22, Junior Bridgman, 1975. JB spent the bulk of his career coming off the bench for the Bucks. The Sixth Man Award wasn't invented until late in his career, but if it had been introduced earlier, Bridgman likely would have won several due to his ability to get hot in a hurry. While JB averaged 13.6 points during his 12-year career, it's what he did after basketball that made him truly impressive. The dude bought over 100 Wendy's and Chili's restaurants and was ranked as the 4th wealthiest retired athlete in 2016. Keep in mind, he never made more than $350,000 a year during his pro career. 21, Larry Hughes, 1998. Hughes was a consistent double-digit scorer during his 13-year career, and he was far from a slouch on the other end of the court. In fact, Hughes once led the league in steals at nearly 3 a night in 2005. That said, he never took a step towards stardom, instead maxing out as a second fiddle to superstars like LeBron James. Of course, that's not a terrible place to be. 2020, Franz Wagner. 2021. Wagner will almost certainly move up this list over the next few seasons. He's never averaged fewer than 15 points during his 4-year career, and he's up to 25 a night during year 4. He's only 23, so even if that number drops a bit, he probably has another decade of basketball in his sneakers. I would not be surprised to see him move into the top 10 on this list if I do it again in a decade. 19, Kerry Kittles, 1996. Kittles is another player who had his career cut short by injuries. The 6'5" guard made the all-rookie team behind 16 points a night. He bumped his scoring up to 17 during year 2, but then he started to miss time with injuries. That culminated in missing the entire 2001 season. He came back to help the Nets to back-to-back finals runs as the 4th offensive option, but was out of the NBA by 2005 after suffering even more injury woes. 18, Rudy Gay, 2006. Considering how solid the Memphis Grizzlies were during the early to mid-2010s, it might surprise you to learn that Gay has only been to the playoffs 3 times, and only one of those came with the Grizz. Still, Gay could score with just about anybody, and played in over 1,100 games over 17 years. However, I can't rank him higher due to lack of accolades and winning seasons. 17, Andrew Toney, 1980. Peak Toney would rank higher on this list. The 2-time All-Star was the 3rd option behind Dr. J and Moses Malone during his early days in Philly, helping the team win a title in '83. Unfortunately, the guy they called the Boston Strangler started to run into chronic foot injuries, keeping him from taking the next step towards stardom. Still, he had 2 full seasons of 20 points and 5 boards, so I'll give him this spot despite only playing 5 healthy seasons. 16, Campy Russell, 1974. Russell is another guy who likely would have ranked higher if not for injuries. During his 8 healthy seasons, Russell was a 1-time All-Star who averaged about 16 points a night. And that number is lowered a bit because the Cavs only played him 11 minutes a game during his rookie season. If you take that year out, he looks even better. Russell also upped his numbers in the playoffs, though his teams only advanced past the first round once. Unfortunately, he missed 2 seasons with injury in '83 and '84, and then played in 3 games in '85 before retiring. 15, Walter Dukes, 1953. Wally was a walking double-double during his 8-year career. The 7-footer made back-to-back All-Star teams in '60 and '61 while playing for the Pistons. He also picked up MVP votes in '58 and '60. On top of all that, he consistently improved his game during the playoffs. Dukes averaged 10 points and 11 boards during the regular season, and upped that to 13 points and 12 rebounds when it mattered. Ultimately, he was never able to get a title, but it was still a very good career. 14, Vin Baker, 1993. During his early career with the Bucks and his first season with the Supersonics, Baker looked poised for a potential Hall of Fame-worthy career. The guy made 4 All-Star teams and 2 All-NBA squads in his first 5 seasons. Then, he developed an alcohol addiction during the '99 lockout and was never the same player. Sure, he kept averaging double figures during his final 4 years in Seattle, but he consistently fought injury and weight issues. His numbers fell off a cliff when he joined Boston in '04, and he was out of the league by '06. Still, I can't deny how dominant he was out of the gate, so I'll give him this spot. 13, Ron Harper, 1986. Harp was putting up huge numbers during his early career with the Cavs and Clippers, averaging over 19 points, 5 assists, and 2 steals. Those teams also routinely made the playoffs, though they didn't get far, so he wasn't putting up those numbers on terrible teams. He joined Michael Jordan's Bulls in '95, winning 3 titles as the steady veteran point guard. Harp won 2 more championships with the Lakers in 2000 and 2001, though by the latter season, his role was limited. 12, Andre Miller, 1999. Given how long the professor played and how good his throwback game was, it's kind of wild that he never made the All-Star team. 2002 was probably his best shot when he averaged 16.5 points and a league-leading 10.9 assists, but he had several years of high production on good playoff teams. Sure, he was a bit of a compiler at the end of his career, but Miller is the only player in NBA history with at least 16,000 points, 8,000 assists, and 1,500 steals who didn't make a single All-Star team. 11. Tom Satch Sanders, 1960. It feels borderline criminal to put a guy who won 8 titles and is in the Hall of Fame this low. However, Satch was, at his best, the 5th option for title-winning teams. Granted, his calling card was being a great defender, and I'm absolutely giving him credit for that. After all, he was consistently taking on the likes of Elgin Baylor and Bob Pettit. It's just difficult to rank him higher, given how great all the pieces around him were. 10. Calvin Nat, 1979. Pitbull was putting up big numbers from the jump, averaging 20 points and 9 rebounds during his rookie season. His best season came in '85 when he dropped 23 points a night for a Nuggets team that made the Western Conference Finals. While that was his only All-Star season, he averaged 17 points and 7 rebounds over his 11-year career. That includes the last 4 seasons of his run, where he consistently dealt with injuries, causing his numbers to drop off a cliff relatively quickly. 9. Dick McGuire, 1949. McGuire was a prototypical point guard, leading the league in assists in 1950 and making 7 All-Star teams despite never averaging double-digit points. His numbers might not seem impressive in the modern day, but Tricky Dick was a wizard with the ball. Like Satch, he's a Hall of Famer, so I might actually be a little low on him. 8. Geoff Petrie, 1970. I think this pick might cause some consternation among viewers. Petrie is a weird one to rank because he only played 6 years before suffering a career-ending knee injury. But during those 6 years, he averaged 22 points and 5 assists. He won co-Rookie of the Year with Dave Cowens in '71 and made 2 All-Star teams. And while he did average more than 24 points a night in 3 seasons, he did so on bad Blazers teams. You could talk me into moving him higher or lower, so this is probably a good spot. I'm sure the comments will agree. 7. Jamal Crawford, 2000. I know I'm saying this a lot, but JC is such a tough player to rank. Despite being a walking bucket, remember, this guy has 50-point games with 4 different franchises. He was always better as a 6th man. In fact, he won the award 3 times, and finished in the top 3 in voting 2 more times. Outside of the lack of starting minutes, his teams didn't have much playoff success. Still, this is an incredibly high placing for someone who never made an All-Star team, which speaks to how good he was at his role. 6. Detlef Schrempf, 1985. Schrempf had a slow start to his career in Dallas, but when given more minutes at Indiana, he became a 2-time 6th Man of the Year winner. The smooth-shooting big man parlayed that success into a starting role in '93, making his first All-Star game in the process. He'd make 2 more All-Star games and an All-NBA team after joining Seattle in '94. Schrempf was also able to consistently up his scoring during the playoffs, though his teams were never able to win a title in his 14 seasons. 5. Tom Chambers, 1981. Chambers came out of the gate hot, averaging 17 points and 7 boards as a rookie. His scoring didn't dip below 17 a night for a decade, as the 4-time All-Star grew into a 20 points a night scorer when he joined Seattle in '84. His best stretch came in '89 and '90 with the Suns. He dropped 26 a night in '89 and upped it to 27 in 1990. That year, he picked up MVP votes and made the All-NBA roster. On top of that, he led Phoenix on a deep run into the playoffs. When Charles Barkley joined the team in '93, he simply became a 6th Man of the Year contender. He spent a few more seasons coming off the bench for various teams, before retiring in '98 after 16 years of averaging 18 points and 6 boards. 4. George Yardley, 1950. Yardley's numbers, which I'll get to in a second, become even more impressive when you remember he missed the first 3 seasons of his career serving in the military. His rookie season was ho-hum, but the flamboyant Yardley quickly became one of the game's best scorers. He made the All-Star team in 6 of his 7 seasons and led the league in scoring in 1958 at 28 a night. He also made 2 All-NBA teams and finished in the top 5 in MVP voting twice. Yardley's teams also consistently won, finishing as runners-up in 55 and 56. He was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 1996. 3. Jack Sikma, 1977. Sikma was a walking double-double during his 9-year run in Seattle, and not far off during his last 5 years in Milwaukee. He made 7 All-Star teams and regularly received votes for MVP. The big guy helped lead the Sonics to a title during his 2nd season in the league. Oh, and despite being 6'11", was money from the stripe, easily going down as one of the best big man free throw shooters of all time. Simply put, he was a pioneer for stretch bigs and one of the best players of his era. For that, Sikma was enshrined in the Hall of Fame in 2019. 2. Robert Parrish, 1976. Parrish became a double-double player during his time in Golden State, but he became an all-time great when he joined Boston in 1981. The Chief teamed up with Larry Bird and Kevin McHale to lead the Celtics to 3 titles during his 14 seasons. He also made 9 All-Star teams and 2 All-NBA rosters during that stretch, averaging 16.5 points, 10 rebounds, and 1.5 blocks. Parrish played for 21 years, setting the record for most games played at 1,611. LeBron might pass that one eventually, but Parrish is one of the great NBA Ironmen. Parrish finished his career with one last title, picking up his 4th as a bench player for Michael Jordan's Bulls in '97. He was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2003. Number 1, Sam Jones, 1957. As mentioned, ranking players from the '60 Celtics is always strange, because those teams were filled with all-timers. That said, Mr. Clutch was one of these scoring engines that made the team hum to 10 NBA titles. The only player with more is his teammate Bill Russell. And Jones always saved his best for the playoffs, raising his scoring significantly in most of Boston's title runs. Sure, Parrish has 9 All-Star nods to Jones's 5, but Jones dominates the field in titles and made 3 All-NBA rosters to Parrish's 2. It's relatively close between the two, but personally, I have Jones edging out the Chief for the top spot.